Yeah, well, I mean, who might we be talking about today?
Well, yeah, as you say, I don't think it will come as a huge surprise that the biggest story from this seems to be Nigel Farage's outside earnings, the Clacton, sort of newly-ish elected Reform UK MP for Clacton. I mean, he's been taking in, I think it's nearly £100,000 a month from the broadcaster EB News, and that's alongside...
That's about £5 a viewer, isn't it?
That's right. Well, they seem to be losing money hand over
They
fist.
do.
I don't know whether that's because or despite Nigel Farage's appearances, but it's a huge sum of money, and clearly it must surely be taking away from some of his parliamentary work. I've just been looking through sort of what he's been getting up to in Parliament recently, and so far he's only spoken twice in the House of Commons. He hasn't put down any written questions. And he doesn't seem to have voted very much either. But he has appeared on, as I say, the right-wing broadcaster, quite a few times in that time instead.
It's, I mean, a lot of people have a lot of issues with MPs having second and third jobs, just in terms of the sort of huge income here and the demand on his time to do it. And I'm aware that many people in Clacton have been trying to get in touch with him as their local MP and have failed to do so. That one might be forgiven for thinking that Nigel Farage isn't actually doing his elected job to the best of his ability, that he's shortchanging his constituents.
I mean, I think that's definitely a growing, groundswell of opinion on this stuff. I mean, one problem that there is, and it's a structural one, there just really aren't any caps on the amount of outside work that MPs can do. There were recently added sort of limits on the kind of work that MPs can do, so sort of banning paid consultancy work, lobbying jobs. But stuff like, broadcasting and swanning around the world, on speaking engagements, there are really no restrictions on that so far. So I think that surely has to come next, really.
Do you well, this is that's the $64 million question, or the £100,000 a month question for Nigel Farage, really, isn't it? Is does it need to be reined in? And is there, and I think this is germane, is there the will within Parliament, considering so many MPs do have second and third jobs, to actually bring any meaningful change in?
I think there is. I mean, Labour has pledged some action on this. One of their first acts was, as I say, to clamp down a little bit on these lobbying jobs, and that they have said that next they're going to look at, further restrictions on outside work. I think partly because although lots of MPs do have outside work, I think, when there are these big scandals that appear, lobbying scandals or, just MPs not seeming to actually come into Parliament and do the work they're elected to do, it does bring down the image of Parliament for, among the general population. I think for every politician and MP, that is a really bad look.
I'm seeing a lot of messages immediately, always the anonymous ones, just saying, Nigel Farage is worth every penny, which I suppose is a view. The question really is whether these kind of second and third jobs are ultimately damaging to our democracy, I suppose, is the thing we should all be wrestling with. And my gut is telling me they are. What about you, Josiah?
Yeah, and I think there's a case to be made, that some media appearances, they are useful for constituents. I think there's perhaps another view, he's making, I think, nearly £4,000 a month doing cameo videos, these sort of paid appearances for punters to get him to do sort of happy birthday videos and things like that. I think there's probably less of a public benefit in parliamentary time, maybe being taken away to do that kind of work. But I'd be intrigued to know, how many of those responses were coming in from Clacton voters themselves. Really be keen to know what Clacton voters really think of this.
Josiah, let's pick that and run with it. If you live in Clacton and Nigel Farage is your MP, please text in any questions you might have for him. Obviously, you're not going to be able to put them to him because he's going to be on a TV studio somewhere, but I will do my level best through the corridors of power in Media Land to see if we can get an answer to your views. Josiah Mortimer, thanks so much for joining us. Josiah, the chief reporter for the brilliant Byline Times.